This week, I added 5 new mechanics and features to my game to figure out if it was actually a game worth making. If you're new here, I've been working on a zombie survival game where you play as the zombie called the First Horde. Yes, Stubbs the zombie, I am aware, so from here on out, we'll call Stubbs a massive inspiration and kick on. So let's find out if it deserves a Steam page. The first thing I worked on was environment interaction. I want the player to feel like they are involved in the creation of the apocalypse. I've always loved the eerie feel of scenes in The Last of Us, I Am Legend, and World War Z, and was always curious about the bits in between that got us to the apocalypse. I would love to fill in that gap in this game, but as humble beginnings would have it, I started with this here fire hydrant. I made this fire hydrant model in Blender and slapped a red texture on it. If you walk close enough to it and collide with this invisible trigger, you will have the option to pick it up. If you do, this pickup animation will play and it will be equipped as a throwable weapon which you can then throw at enemies. I'm still playing with the idea that this and other mechanics will be specific to the type of character you choose to play as, which leads us to the second thing I worked on this week, the main character. I spent a weekend trying to create a character myself, and whilst I am able to do it to some extent, I struggled to create the stylized picture of the character I had in my head in Blender. So I decided to hop onto the asset store and picked up this main character instead. I did also pick up a few base models that I will use as practice for at least an hour each evening. The fact of the matter is that by the end of the creation of this game, I will need to be able to create many character variants because character art is way too expensive to buy on my budget. After I had selected the character I liked, I created a rough variant zombie texture for him and made this transition in game to change between human and zombie. Again, I'm not entirely sure if this ability will fit into my narrative, but I'll keep it around for now. I had to make a decision on the main character early because I am making loads of content for this game right now and need a face of the game. So Duke here is going to be our main character. Fun fact, the name comes from the Zulu word for evolve, Zifenduke. The third mechanic I worked on this week was enemy AI. I gave these cop models I found on Mixamo some guns and instructed them to look for any characters in the game that were labeled as zombies. Once they were within range of a zombie, they would start to shoot at them. Right now they are quite primitive, but at least none of us have to worry about them taking our jobs. I also added health to the player zombie who can now take damage and play a death animation when his health runs out. The fourth mechanic I worked on this week was combat. It needs to feel like fun to fight in the game because there will be a lot of it going on. So I added a heavy punch, a heavy kick, and a ground smash attack for a start. These feel okay for now, but will need some refining over time, of course. The main thing here though was that I was able to come up with a workflow that I can use to create my own animations. I used a technique known as rotoscoping, where you record yourself looking like a fool before keying in the main animation frames in your tool of choice. This process was quicker than I expected it to be. I'm no pro animator just yet though, but again, I'm trying to practice these bits as often as possible. And I pretty much create one animation a day at this point, so I'm sure my skills will dramatically improve over the course of the next few months. The fifth and final feature I made this week was the Steam page. Yes, you can now wishlist the First Horde on Steam. The link is in the description. I've been sharing bits of my work every other day in the form of short content on various platforms, and the feedback has been really good for the most part. A lot of people have said that it is basically just a Stubbs remake, but then again, I guess that would make every FPS game a remake of Maze Wars or Doom. I have some really interesting mechanics and story ideas that I want to make a reality, and I really hope you'll come along for the journey. So I'll catch you on the next one.